anti-Trump rallies in Toronto.
There's little protests everywhere.
With promises of more to come.
Tomorrow there's going to be a big one.
CTV's Austin Delaney is live at the U.S. consulate on University Avenue tonight. Austin, we just saw some of the protests in the U.S. There were also protests here at home.
Well, nothing like we saw south of the border today. The Toronto police had the mounted unit out in case the crowds got big, in case things got violent. The horses were not needed, the crowds were small, and they were peaceful. For these anti-Trump protesters, the day began before sunrise as they boarded buses for the U.S. Capitol.
Show support to American women and what they're going through, and let them know that I'm thinking of them and hoping we can change things.
They will be joining tomorrow's massive women's march on Washington.
We really feel that Islamophobia, racism, sexism sees no borders.
By sunup, Greenpeace was unveiling a banner as part of the Global Day of Action.
We want to send the message that we don't want to see that from our leaders. We want to see our leaders building bridges, not walls, between different groups of people.
Around the noon hour, about a dozen people had gathered in front of the U.S. consulate to protest the new American president.
I mean, his message was all about hate. I don't understand how he could be elected with a message of hate.
Organizers had expected a much larger turnout.
I'm disappointed that more people haven't shown up. I think they're all watching the inauguration on TV.
The few that did come out say it is important.
I've made a sign here that's saying that democracy is more than a vote. I think people think that democracy just stops at the voting poll, and it's more than that. It's in between elections.
Scattered in the group, a couple of Americans.
We're from Chicago.
So what brings you here?
The inauguration. We didn't want to be in the United States for the inauguration.
A few hours later,
Donald Trump ain't welcome here!
A more boisterous demonstration broke out at City Hall.
Our streets! Our streets!
They took their protest across the road, also to the consulate, where they erected their own symbolic wall.
If they're going to build a wall to keep out immigrants, to use as a symbol of fear and a symbol of division, then we're going to put a wall around them, and we're going to say to them that we don't want what you're selling us.
Another demonstration is planned for tomorrow here in the city. It's the Women's March. Organizers have told Toronto police to expect 7,000. Reporting live, I'm Austin Delaney.
The world that started the Trump presidency was not welcomed with fanfare. In London, demonstrators gathered in front of the American embassy. In Tokyo, civil groups marched through the streets, crowd reaching about 600 at one point, many of them American expats.
Love, not hate, makes the world great.
And in Belgium, hundreds of women protested the new president, holding signs about abortion rights and human rights. Back here in the city, a group of American expatriates are heading to Washington at this hour. CTV's Sean Leathong joins us now. You spoke with them. What's the sentiment?
Well, Ken, they want to get down to Washington as soon as possible for the march tomorrow, the march, Women's March on Washington, so that they can have their message be heard, even though they live outside the country. They're waiting for a bus right now. As you can see, the group is starting to gather around me. There should be about 50 when all is said and done. They're going to drive all night. They said it's an exhaustive schedule, but it's worth it.
In the world of a President Donald Trump, these Americans are gathering with a message for their homeland.
He's not my president. That's my general feeling.
Members of Democrats abroad like Julie Buchanan feel moved to protest.
I'm very scared for my country. You know, I still love it, even though I love Canada a lot, but I fear of great fear of Donald Trump as president.
They're leaving tonight for Washington to take part, along with hundreds of thousands of others, for the Women's March on Washington, going home but feeling like outsiders.
We're also, warning our people not to engage with anybody along the sidelines that might be protesting us. We've got children coming with us. I mean, sometimes I get a little scared.
It could be said that inauguration weekend is a time where they should respect the peaceful transfer of power and support their democracy.
The U.S. has elected a president who doesn't care about democracy, who has shown in so many ways that he doesn't care about anybody except himself, really.
He's completely unqualified to do so and does not have background knowledge, nor do I think it is at all his wish to unite.
Now, a couple of members of the group had expressed some concern because there are a few Canadians in here that they might get turned away at the border if they are told that, or if they say that they're going down to protest. They've told those Canadians that if that's the case, they're going to leave the Canadians at the border and the Americans will continue on because they want to have their message heard. Reporting live from Yonge and Finch, I'm Sean Leathong. We'll send it back to you, Ken.
And Inauguration Day also marked with protests in the streets of Washington, D.C. Anti-Trump demonstrators clashed with police throughout the day, and more protests are expected to continue tomorrow. Sean Leathong is with one local group heading down to the U.S. Capitol tonight. Sean.
Well, Michelle, I'm with members of Democrats abroad. Now, this is Donna and Alison. They're from California and Chicago, respectively. So why are you going down to Washington?
I felt that this was a really important moment in history. I think that women need to stand up for themselves, and we all need to come together to help our politicians understand that there's a very strong feeling among women that we need to be heard.
And for me, I'm really going, I'm not a poor loser. Basically, I'm an educated citizen, and I cannot believe that this has happened, and the amount of misinformation that has happened is really discouraging. As a Canadian and an American, I worry about things, and I feel like I'm going just so I can stand up and to be counted.
All right, thank you very much for joining us both. The bus has just arrived that they'll be taking down to Washington. They're driving all night, and then they'll come back on Sunday. So a lot of work, but they say it's worth it. For now, send it back inside.
Thank you, Sean.